Welcome, everybody. This is Rotary eClub of Silicon Valley. Every week, we are trying to bring you stories that inspire you to see the world in new ways. We are part of Rotary International, 1.2 million members and 36,000 clubs around the world, which is pretty cool. Matter of fact, I believe there have even been some changes in how everything operates, such that Rotaractors are now part of Rotary in the way that they can begin to be counted that way. I think that was one of the things that was explained to me quite recently. So we might be at 1.4 million. All good. And in talking about different clubs, the many different kinds of clubs that are part of Rotary, you probably are aware, if you're watching this, that there are what we might call traditional Rotary clubs, folks who get together around a meal, talk about project possibilities, have a speaker, and they do that at a particular time each week somewhere. Okay, great. That's a great thing. All good. There are other types of clubs as well that meet in person. And as a result of the pilot project that ran from 2004 to 2010, there are eClubs. And eClubs form a part of Rotary. There are many types of eClubs as well. The big point in all of this is that when we think about there being a lot of different types of clubs, the goal is to create lots of seats at the table of Rotary. If you're going to have an organization focused on making it possible for people to do good in the world, locally, globally, digitally, then you want to have a lot of different types of clubs. And one of the best things any Rotary club can do is help start another club, right? So that is something I experienced when I was in the Rotary eClub of the Southwest USA, and began talking with some people up here. We got into a great discussion, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. And that ended up being the Rotary eClub of Silicon Valley. There were 5 of us in that initial group, and that was me and Lisa Bickford and Dean McCulley and Alan Thompson, and our speaker today, who is Mitty Chang. Mitty was not only part of the group that started this club, he also was the president of the club from 2016 to 2017. He is a traveler, loves to travel, loves to get different kinds of food in his mouth to see what kind of possibilities there are in culinary realms as he travels the world. And he loves to explore what's possible for service. He is a thinker. He is a person who wants to see new possibilities for the organizations that he's a part of. He's an entrepreneur. He started his first business, I believe, at age 13. Is that right, Mitty?
Yeah.
I don't know what took you so long to get going, but there you go. All right. So he's one of those people who comes to the table with ideas. And today he's coming to this table, this program, with ideas related to a new kind of club that he is developing. And our club is going to be a club that helps him make that happen. And so let's get into the details of that by handing it over to Mitty. Mitty, it is great to have you back in the speaker's chair, and hang in there, because for our viewers to know, Mitty is battling a certain disease that has affected many people around the world. But he is hanging in there well, and we're happy to have him. Mitty, I hand the mic over to you.
All right. Thank you, Rushton. It's great to be back at this table, at this conversation, which is truly amazing how we can have a internationally connected table. And it's great to see some of our club members and friends, Mike and Tanya and Nick, on the call as well. I want to start off with the Houston convention, actually, which I just attended, the Rotary National Convention in Houston about a week ago. So as many of you know, Rotary has an annual international convention. This was my 13th annual convention, and these are some of the photos from my Houston trip. And it's been a few years since we've had an in-person convention. Taiwan, Hawaii, they ended up getting canceled because of COVID. So it's been a few years since Hamburg, Germany, which is the last in-person one, which I was at. And it was just, people keep asking me, how was convention? And I would say it was incredible. It's great to see familiar faces, meet new people. But, at the end of the day, the reason why I want to share some of these photos is because as I'm walking around convention, and this is one of our smaller conventions we've had, that's 11,000 people, and that's small. Usually we're talking about anywhere from 20 to 40,000 people at a convention, right? Which is massive. It's its own city for its own part in another big city. But for me, walking around the halls of the convention center and just bumping into people I knew, meeting new people. I was able to catch up with each of them. And as you do when you're catching up with friends, with family, they're asking, what life milestones, and we follow a lot of folks, like we follow each other on social media. So, they knew I got married, they knew I adopted a puppy. But what not all of them knew is I'm in a chapter of my life where my wife Yvonne and I, she's also a member of this club, and I are expecting our first child, so our baby girl, in August, pretty soon. So in 2 months, right? So super exciting. So it's just so interesting watching some of their faces light up. And I have Rotary friends in the full possible spectrum of anything. So I have friends who are younger than I am. I have friends who are pushing well into their 70s. And it's so interesting seeing their faces light up as you're sharing that kind of news, right? It's just like if you were sharing that news with your family or friends. And it's really nice to see, but also reminded me a lot of the fact that, at the end of the day, Rotary to me is family. And that's really the experience I got from convention. Just that reminder that, we may only see each other sometimes for once a year or once every a few years, but at the end of the day, we're still remotely connected. We're part of this bigger community. And I've met so many incredible people and friends through the years, and here are some of them. And it's all thanks to these different conference experiences, these different convention experiences, but also sometimes the clubs I'm part of, including the eClub. So just brings me back to this point. It's Rotary for me is really my community. It's my tribe. And it's really great to be here having a conversation with my community and to talk about an idea I have. And that is simply, as we're going through different stages of our lives, everyone's going to find themselves having different needs based off of the stage of life they are in. When we first chartered this eClub, and Russian asked me if I wanted to be part of this journey, and Russian's a very, very convincing person. So, it's hard to say no to Russian, but it was a point in my life where I wasn't sure if I would still be in the same city a year later. It was a period in my time in my earlier to mid 20s where I wasn't sure where I'd be in 5 years. So the idea of an eClub and that flexibility was very appealing. And also the idea that, you can also transfer your membership between Rotary clubs if at the end of the day it just didn't work out. Just understanding that it's not a lifelong marriage to one club, but really entering the family of Rotary, which was so important to where I was. So now I'm at a different point in my life where with the daughter coming and with setting down roots over the past few years in the part of the Bay Area I'm in, that I've come to a point where I want a local club. So the idea I want to share today is actually about a local club I'm starting. It's an engagement-based model. I'm going to share with you the vision, how it's initially going to be executed, and I want to start a conversation. Part of this conversation is understanding that as an incredible family that nurtures so many leaders around the world right now, in our eClub, we're going to eventually always have leaders that break away from our family to buy a house somewhere else. Let's say house is a club, and start expanding our family, right? So this is one of those points. But I want to share with you my engagement club model. And the first is the vision, right? So I'm looking to build a local club. I'm going to start that first because it is very different from the eClub model that we're currently in. So I'd like to build a community of busy working professionals that are local in the Bay Area. We're going to get together for service and for socials and have that common bond element. But most importantly, we're going to do that in a slightly different manner. So we're not going to have any club meetings at all. Instead of tracking attendance, we're actually going to track engagement points. So the idea really is for folks to be able to choose their own adventure, so to speak. So we want people to decide, how do they want to engage with Rotary? What makes them a good Rotarian is up to how they want to engage. So whether or not someone really wants to be super involved in just community service, local service, or if they want to be really involved with like foundation fundraising, and they're more of a person who has financial means but less time, or if that means someone who just really wants to be involved in building the club itself and sending out newsletters or building infrastructure with the club and club service. Or if it means someone who loves international service projects and they really want to get involved and spend most of their time with international projects, that's all okay. Like that, at the end of the day, that's really what we're looking to achieve here, which is kind of a model that encourages people to decide what path of Rotary they want to get most involved with, while bringing everyone back to a common core of club community service projects. So there still will be a minimum number of hours you have to do with the club in terms of local service projects. And that's really how we're going to see each other. That's how we're going to make sure that we always have a core bond and community going on. And it's just a different way to approach Rotary. But that's kind of what we're looking at. And at the base of this club, I do want to have a more of a, I want to say a tech startup kind of culture. And that's partially because that's my work experience, right? It's like I work in a lot of the tech space. And that's really where my work influence comes in. But there's this great culture quote from Robinhood Markets. So if you're familiar with the Robinhood stock market, stock app, this same company we're talking about, internally in their culture, they have a phrase called "always be launching." And this is a phrase that I hear all the time when I'm listening to some of my favorite podcasts, which is the best one yet, formerly known as Robinhood Snacks podcast. But this idea is investors, team members, friends, family, they all get excited when they know that you're launching a new product. So we want to take the same idea and the core concept to become the basis for our club culture for this new club. The idea is we always want to be launching something new. At the end of the day, it's really just always keep innovating, right? That's really it. So, it often brings into context this particular comic that I always refer to when I'm talking to Rotary clubs. And, at the end of the day, whether or not we're a different model of Rotary, we're a traditional model of Rotary, it's always understanding that new things are really what drive us to think outside of the box, to get creative. But also it's really what's going to keep us relevant, right? So with that, there are also different stretch ideas and goals that the new model of club I'm launching will go with. And part of that is we're looking at different club products. So we would like to launch our own podcast that is hosted by members, gets released either bi-monthly or maybe more frequently. Some of you listening might think, hey, that sounds a lot like our eClub meetings, right? But maybe audio only, which, maybe possibly true. There are different pieces of different experiences in my life that I love and I like to pick up and continue. To other goals, such as running our own flagship projects, to having a emergency disaster fund that our club is able to quickly execute on and just deploy out whenever there's a new disaster. To also a little bit more stretch ideas, such as building a road rack club within our new Rotary Club. And this idea is a little bit different because just since we don't have club meetings, it's very possible for us to also charter a road rack club as a membership type within our club. They would still have their own club leadership. We would end up capping their age through our bylaws at probably around 30 or 31. But the idea is if they share the same events, the same service projects, and the same socials, they very well can be built within our club, and it'll become an intrinsic mentorship, mentee kind of system, just because we'll see each other regularly, and we'll be building upon some of the same infrastructures, and we'll be able to help each other. So There are some of these stretch ideas, and part of this is based off that culture of always be launching, right? The idea that let's keep trying something new, and let's always keep saying, hey, this year we're going to be launching a new project, or this year we're going to be launching a new version of our podcast, or this year we are going to be relaunching our website, because we should be doing that every now and then. And that brings me towards the end of the piece of the conversation, where it's more of a monologue and then it's going to become more of a dialogue. But the idea really is, what's next? So at this point, I'm looking to set up some of my first interest meetings here in the San Francisco Bay Area within the next 2 months. And that's going to start with some service projects and some socials as we build momentum. The idea is to charter this new club by the end of this calendar year. So talking about a little bit into the next Rotary year, since we're already almost there. Might actually already be there by the time this gets published. But the idea is to see whether or not our eClub would be interested in somehow staying involved. I think in an ideal world, I would love for our eClub to be either the sponsor or a sister club towards this new club. And I'd love for our eClub to kind of foster that kind of openness of, hey, if our leaders want to go out there and branch out, expand the family, buy new locations, so to speak, then we will do our best to support them. And I'd love to just stay involved. And I also want to just open up the conversation to questions about the new engagement-based model that I'm looking at, but also any questions in general about just Rotary and expanding our family. Russian, I'll turn it back to you.
Awesome, Mitty. The opportunity to talk about the nature of what we do is a treat. And in terms of the relationship between the eClub and the new club, I am sure it will be one along the lines that you describe. And everybody I have talked to about it in our club has seen it the same way. So I think that that's going to be an easy path towards sponsoring or sistering or whatever we do. I'll start the questions because there's so many kind of interesting things to explore as a part of this.
Yeah.
And first of all, even before I do, let me do two things. One is to introduce the group that we've got here. My name is Rushton. I'm part of the programs team for the Rotary eClub of Silicon Valley. We also have with us at the time this gets published, he will be our secretary. And he is Mike Kane. He's in the Sacramento area. Mike, a dedicated member of District 5170 for a long time, and great to have as a part of our team in the eClub. The current secretary and soon to be the president-elect up in Vancouver is Nick Lagarde. Nick, very cool to see you, my friend. And friend of the club, former member of the club, and hopefully future member of the club again, or perhaps member of a cool new model, however that might work out. In the Hotlanta, Georgia area, that would be Tanya Martin. Tanya, good to see you as well. All right, the kind of thing that we're about to do is really a discussion kind of built on questions about what the model can be, right? And Mitty, one of the things that strikes me as you talk about the different elements of the club is that it really has a load in common with the experience of Rotaract, right? Like, I feel like I'm hearing so much in what you describe that is born out of the in a sense, more innovative approaches that have been a part of Rotaract for some years. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think having gone through Interact, Ryla, and Rotaract, and then becoming a Rotarian, still staying involved with Rotaract, I think influences a lot of my thinking, right, in a lot of the planning process for this. So I would say to some extent, yes, we're coming back to the roots of making action happen, right, being the main focus of things. But I think a part of that is also, there are a lot of, actually, I would say most Rotaract clubs still have club meetings. For some very intentional strategic reason, we're also deviating away from that set path, right? And I think a lot of those clubs have club meetings because they've been told that's where they should start, right? So we're coming at this to a point where we're starting with we're intentionally not going to have club meetings. because we're finding that a lot of our working professionals, at least here in the Bay Area, so it may, again, this is, I think, geographically different, but may not be, but a lot of them are finding that meetings translate to work in their minds, and that they have too many meetings going on, and then it's really hard to get away every single week for a meeting, and that might be because they're working 9 to 7, right, each day, or they're working 8:30 to 6:30. They're working longer hours than normal, and just even a online meeting becomes more of a burden for them versus it's an opportunity cost, right? What else could they do with that same amount of time? They can mingle, socialize, and break bread, or if they can do service instead, then they usually jump at that opportunity.
Cool. Nick, I see a question forming on your brow there.
Yeah, I'm trying, like, I think what you're highlighting, Mitty, some of the challenges that we face in eClub. It's really cool. I mean, looking at the map of our website and seeing how geographically dispersed we are is awesome.
Mhm.
But all of our members face a challenge, which is then they are not getting that local connection. I form personally my local connection to my local Rotary Club. Very fortunate to have some very prominent members who have been, that I'm pretty sure you've met, the Offers, Chris Offer and Penny Offer, because they're in my local area. And I've gotten to know Rotary that way first through this. I guess my question is that the main motivator? Is that you could theoretically do this in a geographically dispersed way, but that breaking bread, that's the driver, right? Like that you can always get together. Is that
Yeah.
the main thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit it right on, right there. So I think the problem to solve is, how do you build a strong sense of community, of just being my family and my tribe, and it's especially difficult to do for someone who's new to the Rotary family, right? If this is their first entry point in, whether or not it's an eClub model, right, which is, I think, has its own unique challenges to answer that problem, or if it's a engagement based model, like we're all tackling the same problem to solve here, right? Which, even for traditional clubs, like the purpose of a meeting, I would say, should no longer be to disseminate information because you can email that out. It is really, how do we maintain, create, foster that sense of community and continue to do that? So I'm at that point where I would love for my daughter to grow up with that sense of community and see them in person is, I think, the turning point for me. But I mean, from a flexibility perspective, it's hard to, go easier than our eClub model right now, which is incredible.
How do you measure engagement? And I think Mike wrote in the chat around, how does that tie into Rotary guidelines? And I know that obviously Rotary has evolved over the past decade to not require meetings particularly, but like, obviously I love that you're measuring engagement. You're measuring something instead, because it's not just, they're not just there, they're not just a member, but they're something else.
Yeah, Rotary guidelines are very relaxed now, especially understanding that over the past decade plus, like Rotary membership in North America has continued to decline, right? So there's a lot more flexibility now. There's no longer an attendance requirement when it comes to Rotary International enforcing one. It is really just up to each club on if they want to enforce it. That being said, we're kind of still tracking attendance, but differently, right? Through an engagement-based model. We at the end of the day, we want members who are involved with the club. We just want them to choose how they want to stay involved, right? But while at the same time, since we need them to still see each other to create that sense of community that we're after, we're still going to require a minimum number of service hours that they come out to our events for. So that's really, I think, how we're envisioning tackling that. But I'm sure this will evolve over time as we encounter different folks with different desires and passion projects too.
Mike, do you want to build on that thought a bit? Go ahead and unmute. Let's go ahead and have you unmute there, Mike.
Unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Mitty. I think change is great, and change is what's going to keep Rotary viable and growing. And your thinking, I believe, is very reflective of the generation of young professionals who have found that life work service balance challenging. What I would ask is how you approached differentiating the club as a new category with some of the formatting already in place through clubs which have expressed change but haven't really caught on. The one that comes to my mind the most is Passport. Probably one of the least understood formats. It does require one meeting a month, and it does require personal service commitments. And if I read you right, what you're introducing into that is to say, well, we don't have that formal meeting, but we are going to get together one way or the other. And we're going to measure things by engagement rather than personal commitment. And I just wondered how you see the flavor of the two evolving, and how you came to the point you did from there.
Yeah, great questions. So if you really think about it, we're still getting together. So to a lot of extent, all Rotary clubs, so it doesn't matter what your model is after, but it's figuring out how to build that sense of community, right? Whether or not it's an eClub or a Passport club or any off branch of any of the above or something else, everything started with one club trying out this new idea. So that's the same thing with the eClub before eClub models became official by Rotary International. Same thing with Passport clubs, where Passport clubs slowly made their way around the country in terms of what they are, but eventually making them their way to the international level. It started with one club as well. So a lot of this is understanding that virtually most club models at this point are fair game, as long as you're still within the aspect of doing service, doing good. You want to bring good people together, right? So there's a lot of room for innovation right now in Rotary, which is great. It is not a sentence I think I was able to say in 10 years ago, but we're at a stage where a lot of the senior leaders in Rotary throughout, at least in North America, if not the world, understand that if we want Rotary to be around in another 50 years, we really need to be as open as we can be, right, with different ways to do Rotary. And we're seeing that a lot with different pilots that are running, but we're also seeing a lot of flexibility in, if you do want to run with an idea, there is that flexibility to do it. If you're successful with the idea, that's when people start talking about it. That's when people create names for it. So whether or not it comes with its own name, or people look at this as this is a type of Passport club, that's totally okay. We're not really looking to create a name out of this. We're just looking to do Rotary in a way that works out for our members, right?
That's great. Do you, as far as geography goes, do you envision this model to be a local group of members, or do you see it expanding beyond the local area?
Yeah, that's a good question. For this particular club, it will be local. We will not have a requirement for if you live in the San Francisco Bay Area or not, but it is going to be based off of minimum number of service events you do with our club. These will be local service events. So in theory, one could fly in for the service projects, do these projects with our club, and still say they're part of our club, which is totally okay. We're going to leave that kind of open-ended because, we understand that there may be some, interesting cases where people do want to do that. And maybe their work brings them to the Bay Area, and they want to somehow be connected with a club locally here. But at the same time, it is really designed to be a local club. So that is very different from our eClub model, right? Which is very global right now. or even some other eClubs. Like I know Raquel recently started a separate club that has more of an engagement-based model that is also, I believe, an eClub because she has members spanning across different countries, right? So this particular idea is very localized because we want to grow a local community and we want people to see each other, and we want to be able to make it feel like a local family as well.
Nice. Let's do two more questions. Tanya, jump in.
Sure. Mitty, how many service hours are you thinking about each month?
Yeah, so the specifics are still kind of up
Mhm.
for negotiation before they're concrete, but initially we're thinking 2 hours on average per month. So it's just going to come out to an annual allocation. But the idea is whether or not you go to a big service event that's 8 hours for one day, or if you just want to do 1 or 2 hours a month and just eventually get your way over there, that's totally okay. The idea is just making sure that we at least see people for some of these events each year in person.
Okay, got it. So can you do, I'm just trying to think, okay.
Mhm.
Did you say earlier that the events are like you're going to sponsor an event each month and everyone, like you would choose from one event, or will there be several events each month?
Yeah, good question. So we'll probably have 2 to 4 events per month
Okay.
to start off with. So there'll be quite a few to select from. And eventually, as the club grows and if we see more demand, we may have more events. So it just depends. We don't expect everyone to go to all the events, right? It's more of a what works with your schedule, also our event capacity, et cetera. So if we're looking at events that are 6 people to 10 people capacities, we'll probably run a few of those. Just maybe in a regular cadence as well, just so that people know they have different opportunities to engage with the club, and see people they know, meet some new people too.
Got it. Okay, perfect. It sounds great. I was just talking to Rushton yesterday about clubs being more active. And so this just sounds like a great model.
Yeah, it is very much a getting back to the roots of action, and every club does it a little bit different. I think we're looking for people who really enjoy getting together in person and doing that over some kind of service project or even social. And I know there's a question, Mike, in the chat about are these events going to be self-generated, or if they were going to latch on to like another event? It's going to be a mix of both. So we definitely want to own our own projects and have flagship projects we are happy about, because I think a part of a healthy club is having your members proud of things that your club owns, right? Like different products that you can say, hey, this is unique to our club, this is our flagship project. But at the same time, like realistically, with how many events we want to do, like a lot of them will also still be like, let's go to the food bank, right? And let's pack something there, or let's combine with this other Rotary club and work with them on this project too. So there'll be a lot of collaboration, which I think is a great thing, and you end up meeting people outside of your own club too.
There are two things that come to mind about the discussion just now. That one which is common to all forms of clubs. One of which is, I think, more distinctive to the models that you describe and that we currently have in the eClub of Silicon Valley. The first one is that every club needs to help develop leaders, right? So if you're going to have 2 to 4 service projects, a month, it can't be one person doing all those things, right? That would be crazy. And so to whatever extent you're getting people involved in the planning and have a system for fostering leadership, that's awesome. The thing that might be more distinctive to the 2 clubs that we've described in describing both our own and the one that you are building is that it is much more financially feasible for people to be part of a club that does not have a venue cost nor a meals cost, right? For those who might be watching and are not members of our club, the dues for us are $150 each 6 months, right? Which in Rotary terms is really, really low, right? There are lots of clubs where you might pay $50 a week for the meal, which adds up to a lot of money. So Mitty, to whatever extent you want to comment on either of those thoughts, feel free.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I don't think we've settled in on a dollar amount. I think we are looking at different tiered membership levels at the moment. So Rotaract being a potential tiered membership level. So if you're under the age of 31, you'd be eligible for that membership level, and that'd be an offering. So that'd be significantly less, probably closer to $50 a year. And versus if you want to join in at the Rotary level, we are looking at the eClubs 300 a year, right? Broken down different ways, 6 months, 150 every month, $27 or something like that. So we are looking at different at that as a standard or as a baseline, right, for our membership. We're also looking at offering higher tiered membership levels that automatically bundle in your Paul Harris as part of your membership fee. And part of that is just a donation to the foundation, which is tax deductible, and we'll let you know how much of it's tax deductible. But the idea that we also recognize that there might be folks who have more interests and more financial capabilities that may want to figure out a higher level commitment wise, and maybe the club recognizes them for that kind of commitment, right? So that's something that we're entertaining right now. But at the end of the day, I think we're all at the same mindset, which is the more folks we can make Rotary accessible to, the better off we are. So we're entertaining different ideas, and we're also entertaining the possibility of what we would call a I had another term in mind, but I'm just going to say work study element. There's another term I was thinking about that we usually use in a co-working space, but the idea that for folks who may be at a financial point where it's a little bit difficult to join Rotary, we'd be open to for them to offer their hours in exchange to the club as club service in exchange for a discount on the membership rate. So that idea that we value their time. We also know that there's a lot of club services that we're going to need help with, and there's some things that are just not as fun to do for some people, right? So if we can get someone to maybe handle and manage like the newsletter in exchange for a discount to their membership, we would be happy to have that kind of offering as well.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, let's wind things down for today. Mitty, I'll hand it back to you for a final word here in just a moment. But for all of you who are watching this as a part of our weekly meeting, I hope you are excited about the idea that Rotary can exist in a lot of different ways. That our club is a club that celebrates its international connections. Celebrates the inspiration we get from so many different speakers from around the world. The chance to focus on the annual service project related to fighting cancer, whatever it may be. But like every club, we are trying to figure out how do we improve what we do. And one way to improve is to help launch new models. And so it's really exciting to be able to have Mitty describe the innovative approach that he's taking to this club. And I hope that the team that you get together for this will be one that sees itself and understands itself to be launching something excitingly new. I think that's really cool. So if you have been joining us and you are a Rotarian with another club, please let us know you were here. There is the attendance form just slightly down our meeting page. And at the bottom, we also invite you to leave a message in our forum. You can respond to other people's thoughts on the meeting or the program content. You can leave your own, whatever floateth thy boat. And so with that, I will do what we always do, which is hand it over to our speaker for a final word. Mitty, finish us off.
Thank you, Russian. Thank you, members and guests, for listening to our conversation. It's amazing to be part of the family of Rotary, and it's great to be part of a international digital dining table right now, and where each of us can kind of listen in on these conversations. At the end of the day, if you are interested in getting involved with the club I'm talking about, because you are based in the San Francisco Bay Area, or you know someone based in the San Francisco Bay Area, I'd welcome you to reach out to me and happy to chat about it. Otherwise, I am so happy to have had this eClub as part of my journey, and I hope that we will stay connected as a family, and that y'all are going to be proud of the new branch of the family that I will hopefully be charting pretty soon. That's it for me. Back to you, Rushton.
That's awesome, Mitty. And the club is better for your involvement for sure. So with that, we will see you next week.